Within Orion's sea of consciousness, the world tree sapling, having diligently shared its essence with the wounded world, gradually calmed down its radiance, its brilliance slowing into a steady glow. Orion's soul silhouette had fully shaped into a clear form mirroring his physical body. He felt every sensation acutely during this time, the stabilizing mana of the environment, the rhythmic breathing of the now healed world, and the gentle hum of his completed breakthrough. Slowly, Orion opened his eyes. They shimmered momentarily with wisdom and serenity before returning to their usual dual-colored brilliance. His gaze swept across the scene before him, a vast, kneeling crowd that stretched as far as he could see. Countless lionkin and tigerkin, warriors and commoners who came to fight alike, knelt reverently, their faces showing deep respect and heartfelt gratitude. At the forefront of this sea of people were the Lionkin King and Duke Varian, both with heads bowed in humble submission. Having observed this scene during his meditation, Orion showed no surprise. With calmness, he rose gracefully to his feet. The gentle rustling of his movements seemed amplified in the hushed silence, immediately drawing the attention of the two rulers, who cautiously raised their eyes to meet his. Orion studied the Lionkin King and Duke Varian thoughtfully for a brief moment before speaking in a calm yet authoritative tone. "You don't need to kneel before me. You owe me nothing." Slowly, the Lionkin King and Duke Varian exchanged uncertain glances before hesitantly rising to their feet. The Lionkin King wore an expression of gratitude, while Duke Varian appeared deeply respectful yet conflicted. It was Duke Varian who finally broke the brief silence, his voice steady yet sincere. "But, Lord Orion, all of us owe you our lives. If you weren't here, our entire world would have perished. We owe you everything." Orion sighed lightly, shaking his head gently. "I'm nothing but a passerby, and also one of the main reasons your world faced such peril. Even if I wasn't the direct cause, I am far from a saint." His words carried a quiet weight of sincerity and introspection, acknowledging his role in their crisis while gently pushing away their unconditional reverence. The Lionkin King exchanged another troubled glance with Duke Varian, uncertainty evident in their eyes as they silently debated what could possibly appease someone who had granted them such mercy. Observing their conflicted expressions, Orion exhaled softly, recognizing he couldn't simply dismiss their gratitude. Their world's fate was intertwined with his actions, intentionally or not. He decided to offer them a constructive path forward, something meaningful for their entire civilization. After a thoughtful pause, Orion spoke with clarity and a clear goal. "If you truly wish to repay me, then fulfill a single request." The eyes of both leaders immediately lit up with anticipation and relief, their posture straightening. The Lionkin King eagerly responded, "Anything you ask, we will accomplish with all our hearts." Orion nodded once, solemnly holding their gaze. "My request is for your two kingdoms, the Lionkin and Tigerkin, to merge. No longer separated by trivial differences or historical grievances. And there is a particular Tigerkin woman, from a minor noble family located just outside the Tigerkin capital. I want her to be chosen as the leader who unites and guides both your peoples as one." His words settled firmly in the air, carrying profound implications. Both the Lionkin King and Duke Varian momentarily froze, their minds racing to fully grasp the significance and weight of Orion's request. Their astonishment was evident, eyes widening and mouths slightly parted in shock. After a long silence, Duke Varian cleared his throat softly, a question lingering heavily in his voice as he carefully asked, "Why specifically her, Lord Orion?" Orion's gaze drifted toward the horizon, his dual-colored eyes reflecting the vibrant hues of the evening sky. For a moment, he remained silent, as if gathering his thoughts, before calmly answering, "I've spent this past week observing your world closely. Amidst the chaos, she stood apart. She's one of the rare few who indiscriminately helped both Tigerkin and Lionkin, saving lives, providing food and shelter, and uniting rather than dividing. She possesses the heart and strength necessary to guide your people forward." He paused, letting his words resonate briefly, before adding quietly yet meaningfully, "And beyond that, I happen to know her personally." The Duke and the Lionkin King exchanged swift glances, their expressions turning thoughtful and calculating. Both leaders were seasoned rulers, well acquainted with the subtleties of politics and alliances. They immediately understood the weight behind Orion's words. Having a leader personally connected to a powerful being from a higher world was an invaluable advantage. Such a link meant security, opportunities for guidance, and possibly even future alliances extending far beyond their humble realm. It was clear Orion's choice was neither arbitrary nor impulsive. It was deliberate, insightful, and deeply meaningful. After a silent exchange of mutual understanding, Duke Varian respectfully inclined his head. His voice was firm and sincere as he said, "We understand your reasoning, Lord Orion. Your wish shall be fulfilled exactly as you have requested." The Lion-Kin King mirrored Varian's sentiments, his deep voice reverberating with earnest commitment. "Indeed, we will ensure that she leads both races wisely and compassionately, forging unity where division once stood." Orion offered them a gentle, approving nod. His gaze shifted across the now flourishing landscape around him, satisfaction evident in his calm demeanor. He spoke again, his voice imbued with certainty. "Your world has reached the peak of a small world. The path of ascension should become easier now. The barrier that once confined your growth has weakened. This is your chance to grasp a greater future." His words resonated profoundly within both leaders. Their eyes instantly lit with excitement, their hearts ignited by the prospect of guiding their kingdoms toward unprecedented heights. Each imagined their people flourishing, growing stronger, stepping toward ascension with ease, their societies finally breaking through past limitations. Orion's actions had granted them more than just survival. He had given them the tools and foundations needed to strive for greatness, the very things they had been fighting for years. Recognizing their eagerness, Orion gently waved his hand, dismissing them with an understanding expression. "Now, you may go. I've said what needed to be said. I wish to spend some time alone." Both Duke Varian and the Lion-Kin King immediately bowed deeply, their respect and gratitude radiating from their gestures. Without another word, they stepped back slowly, turning to face their gathered armies. Quiet murmurs and rustling spread among the massive gathering as they rose from their kneeling positions. Slowly, but with hope and determination burning brightly within them, the two rulers began guiding their vast armies away from the site, their voices carrying orders, rallying their peoples toward a new and unified future. Orion stood quietly, a gentle breeze rustling the vibrant, newly grown grass beneath his feet. He gazed thoughtfully at the receding figures of Duke Varian, the Lion-Kin King, and their massive unified armies as they gradually vanished beyond the horizon, their presence replaced by calm silence and the comforting embrace of nature's rebirth. As the quiet returned, Orion finally allowed a genuine, relaxed smile to spread across his face, tension slipping away from his shoulders. He exhaled softly, eyes flashing with satisfaction and relief. Inside his sea of consciousness, Lumi's voice emerged gently, filled with curiosity. "What's next, Master? Do you plan to head back now?" Orion chuckled softly to himself, a warm and amused sound, his gaze still fixed thoughtfully on the horizon. "It's been about 10 days since I was separated from my friends," he said softly, a slight nostalgia coloring his voice. "It's definitely about time I headed back. They must be getting restless." He paused briefly, looking around at the lush, vibrant surroundings. The grass swayed gently under the cool breeze, and the air seemed to shimmer with abundant mana, freshly revitalized and stable. "At least this world is truly stabilized now," Orion continued with quiet satisfaction, nodding to himself. "No more spatial fissures or random portals will appear. These people will have their peace." Inside Orion's sea of consciousness, Lumi chuckled softly, her voice laced with humor and relief. "Then it's a good thing we received that from the ascended gotcha draw. Otherwise, we'd have quite the long journey back, wouldn't we?" Orion smiled broadly, amused by Lumi's teasing remark. He nodded slightly in agreement before reaching slowly into his spatial inventory. From it, he withdrew a delicate object, a luminous, crystalline sphere, shimmering softly with iridescent hues of blue and white. It glowed gently in his palm, radiating a strange energy and a sense of boundless space. "Ah, a one-time use spatial treasure," Lumi said softly, admiration evident in her voice. Such perfect timing, master. Orion smiled gently, the delicate glow of the treasure illuminating his calm expression. Indeed. Looks like this treasure wasn't for me to run away but to head back home. He took a deep breath, steadying himself and gazing deeply into the crystalline sphere. With a swift motion, he applied pressure, causing the delicate treasure to fracture softly, cracks spreading rapidly along its surface until it shattered in a dazzling display of brilliant, sparkling motes of light. As the treasure broke, Orion's mind instantly visualized the precise location from which he had been transported to this distant, once dying world, the clearing inside that forest where the portal was situated. The sparkling motes of luminous energy swirled gently around him, glowing softly like stardust, their light intensifying gradually until Orion's entire figure was enveloped in a radiant cocoon of brilliant azure and white brilliance. Time to return, he whispered quietly, feeling both anticipation and relief surge within him at the thought of reuniting with his friends once more. As he stood still, enveloped by the radiant azure and white brilliance of the spatial treasure, he felt a profound sensation ripple through him. The fabric of reality itself gently folded and twisted around him, shifting and reshaping like the currents of an ethereal river. He closed his eyes and allowed his senses to expand, relishing the indescribable feeling of spatial energy flowing smoothly and harmoniously around him. Within this seamless passage, the sensations of the restored world slowly faded, replaced gradually by something deeply familiar. It was as though Orion was being pulled across countless distances in mere heartbeats, yet gently enough that he felt no discomfort or strain. Space whispered around him, welcoming him back to the familiar prime realm he called home. A moment later, the vibrant glow around him slowly faded away, replaced by the subtle warmth of golden sunlight filtering through tall, leafy trees. Orion's eyes slowly opened, the serene smile on his face widening as he gazed around. He was once again standing in the peaceful forest clearing where his incredible journey had begun. Immediately, Orion took a deep, refreshing breath. The air here felt incomparably rich and pure, saturated with dense mana that instantly rushed into his body, invigorating his senses and replenishing him completely. He stretched gently, letting the familiar currents of energy flow freely through his channels, his body instantly adapting and harmonizing with the potent ambient mana. A sense of relief washed over him, making Orion exhale softly, a broad smile stretching naturally across his face. Finally, he murmured softly, feeling genuine contentment. It feels like I can breathe again. Just then, rustling sounds echoed faintly from beyond the tree line. Orion's head immediately turned, his eyes softening with a warmth and anticipation he hadn't fully realized he'd been holding within. Figures emerged swiftly from the foliage, their footsteps hurried, their gazes bright with a mixture of relief, astonishment, and joy. "Brother Orion," came a familiar, urgent voice, filled with unrestrained relief. At the forefront, Arya rushed forward, her face radiant with delight and her eyes shimmering with unshed tears of relief. Right behind her was Amelia, her normally composed demeanor momentarily forgotten as a soft, genuine smile bloomed openly on her face. Philyra and Sylvia quickly followed, their eyes wide with astonishment and happiness. NYSS came at the back, away from the others, while looking at Orion with a genuine smile on her face. Edgar appeared next, his distraught expression breaking into an earnest, relieved grin upon seeing Orion unharmed and healthy. Even Lucan exhaled a sigh of relief after seeing Orion safe and sound in front of him as he nodded his head toward him. Arya stopped just a short distance from Orion, looking at him worriedly and quickly asking, "Are you all right, Brother Orion? Did that vampire do something to you?" Orion gently raised his hand, signaling Arya to calm down. He offered her a warm, reassuring smile, his gaze soothing and confident. "Arya, relax. I'm fine, truly," he assured her softly, his voice filled with warmth. "The vampire couldn't harm me in the end." Arya let out a relieved sigh, her shoulders visibly relaxing as tension seeped away from her expression. Amelia stepped closer, her sharp, thoughtful gaze scanning Orion's appearance closely before nodding slowly in approval, clearly satisfied by what she saw. Orion's expression turned thoughtful as a slight frown crossed his face. "First things first, can anyone tell me how long I've actually been gone? Something doesn't seem to add up," he asked quietly, eyes narrowing in slight confusion. Edgar took a step forward and calmly explained to Orion, "Time flows differently in different worlds, young master. The time ratio between a prime realm like ours and a small world is roughly 1 to 10. Orion's eyes widened slightly as understanding dawned upon him. "Oh, no wonder it felt odd," he murmured thoughtfully, nodding to himself. "I spent around 10 days within that small world after being separated from you all." "That means only a single day passed here?" Edgar inclined his head respectfully, confirming Orion's deduction. "Precisely, young master." Behind Edgar, Elias stepped forward, his eyes wide with open curiosity and lingering concern. "But what exactly happened after the portal was destroyed by that vampire?" he asked urgently, his voice filled with worry. "The spatial turbulence was horrifying. We honestly thought you might have perished within that chaos. Yet Sir Edgar and the others remained adamant you'd be all right." Orion chuckled lightly, touched by their genuine worry. He felt warmth spreading in his chest, feeling good for having friends who cared so deeply about his well-being. "I understand your worry," Orion said, his voice gentle yet firm. "When the portal collapsed, I was forcibly teleported back to the same world. At that point, I was already injured, but I managed to use one of my treasures to conceal myself from their detection." As he spoke, everyone fell silent, listening closely with rapt attention. Orion's club members, Arya, Emilia, Philira, Sylvia, NYSS, and others, all stared at him in quiet amazement. Edgar and Lucan exchanged impressed glances, their respect for Orion clearly deepening. Orion continued calmly, carefully narrating the events while omitting some of the most extraordinary details. "While concealed, I took that opportunity to break through in my mana cultivation, stabilizing myself enough to face the vampire leader, Valerian." Elias's eyebrows rose in slight astonishment, his face filling with surprise. "You faced Valerian himself?" he murmured, clearly shocked. "How in the hell did you even win against that monster? He was beyond powerful in that world." Orion chuckled softly and said, "He was indeed strong. But it wasn't the true body. I managed to exhaust the strength of his body as he gradually grew weaker. It wasn't easy, but the fight taught me many valuable lessons about myself and my capabilities." All others gasped as they didn't think it was merely a clone of someone else. Sylvia softly muttered, "No wonder he was so strong." Elias let out a relieved breath, admiration shining clearly in his gaze. "Incredible," he whispered softly. "We always knew you were strong, but to defeat the clone of a higher being, it's beyond our expectations." Even Arya was having a hard time believing what Orion had just told them, yet he had no reason to lie to them as she slowly said, "This is really incredible. I'm just glad you managed to come back safe and sound, Brother Orion." Emilia's gaze softened further, her voice calm yet carrying deep respect. "Not only did you survive impossible odds, but you've also grown stronger in such a short span. You've certainly surpassed our expectations once again, Orion." Orion chuckled warmly as he looked at his group with a joyful gaze. "Honestly, I was just fortunate to have the right opportunities and preparations." He deliberately omitted the details of Sun Wukong's Ruijin Gubang, the Monkey King's incredible legacy, and the entire thing about his evolution of the World Tree sapling. Those secrets remained safely tucked away, their significance too vast and sensitive to be casually revealed. Instead, Orion shifted the conversation toward lighter matters. "In any case, I've learned a great deal, and I'm eager to put these experiences to good use. Let's just say, my understanding of myself and my path ahead has grown clearer." Edgar nodded approvingly, a proud smile spreading across his rugged face. "As expected of you, young master. Every trial seems only to strengthen and refine you further. Isn't this exactly the reason for our adventure?" He lightly smiled. Lucan added with a chuckle, "Young master arrived. Young master dominated. And young master left. Haha, perfect." The group laughed at his words as the atmosphere turned lighthearted. Deep inside Orion's sea of consciousness, Lumi whispered with a warm voice, sharing Orion's relief and happiness. "It truly feels good to be back home, master." Orion silently agreed, feeling happy for this moment of peace with his friends. After the cheerful laughter subsided and the group gradually calmed, Orion glanced toward the sinking sun casting golden-orange hues across the clearing. Orion finally spoke up, his voice calm but firm. "All right, everyone. This adventure has been more than enough excitement and danger for a while. Let's return home and rest properly." Arya immediately nodded in fervent agreement, exhaling a tired sigh. "I wholeheartedly agree, Brother Orion. After that kind of intense experience, I think we all need some serious rest." Elias stretched his arms above his head, giving a relieved groan. "Not going to hear any complaints from me. A comfortable bed sounds incredible right now." Edgar chuckled gently at the younger member's enthusiastic reactions. "Indeed. Experiencing real battles reveals more about our strengths and weaknesses than months of standard training." Orion smiled lightly, nodding. "Exactly. This single expedition has shown us precisely where we need improvement. Let's rest for a week. Use this time well, reflect, cultivate, and refine your techniques." Thalira's expression brightened with approval. "Sounds perfect. I've realized exactly how my spells could be optimized after witnessing such battles." Sylvia smiled softly, glancing gratefully at Orion. "Agreed. I'm eager to integrate everything I've learned." Lucan's lips quirked upward into a faint smile. "A wise decision, young master. Rushing blindly into another adventure would do more harm than good." Orion gave them all a satisfied nod. "Then it's settled. Rest properly, consolidate your gains, and we'll pick a suitable destination for our next adventure afterward." They all murmured in agreement, their expressions relaxed, fatigue visibly softening their postures. They turned together toward the carriage waiting just beyond the clearing, climbing aboard in pairs, conversation turning to lighter topics as the tension fully drained from their shoulders. The carriage ride was peaceful, the gentle rocking motion and muted chatter of his companions soothing Orion's mind. As they traveled along the familiar winding roads back toward Thunder Peak Royal City, Orion decided to truly rest for once in a long while, his eyes drifting shut as he decided to rest for a while. Eventually, Orion found himself standing quietly before the entrance of his mansion, its grand gates intricately wrought with motifs of storm clouds and lightning bolts, bathed in the soft glow of evening twilight. He took a deep, calming breath as the gates smoothly opened, stepping forward onto the familiar hallway. His friends had already dispersed, returning to their homes to rest and recuperate, leaving Orion alone. As he walked back inside the hallway, soon after the sight of the familiar doors of the main hall came into view, with the familiar sense of polished wood and hearth fire filling the air, wrapping around him in a nostalgic embrace as he felt as if an eternity had passed since the last time he was here. Inside the expansive main hall, the familiar figures of Eldrick and Celine awaited him. Both stood by the great fireplace, their faces lighting up as Orion entered. "Welcome back, lad," Eldrick said warmly, his deep voice filled with genuine relief and pride. "You really made us wait a long time to come back from that small world." Celine smiled gently, stepping forward and placing a tender hand on Orion's shoulder, her eyes carefully scanning him for injuries or exhaustion. "You've truly given us quite a scare this time, dear," she softly chided, though her eyes held nothing but warmth and relief. "I'm glad you're safe." Orion chuckled lightly, feeling warm at the care the two of them continued to show him. "Sorry to worry you both," he replied earnestly, his voice respectful and sincere. "It was certainly more eventful than I'd planned." Eldrick laughed deeply, shaking his head. "If anything, your adventures are never dull. Still, you must be exhausted." Orion nodded gently. "A bit, yes. It was a valuable experience, though. I understand myself, and my limits, much better now." Celine squeezed his shoulder gently, pride clearly shining in her gentle gaze. "That's the true value of experiences like these. Still, don't forget to take proper rest now. Balance is important." Orion nodded respectfully, his expression becoming serious yet gentle. "I've already sent everyone home to rest for the week. I plan to do the same." But before that, I wanted to see you both and let you know I'm fine. Eldric's powerful hand settled comfortingly on Orion's other shoulder, his gaze filled with fatherly pride. Now that we know you are all right, it's time you become a storyteller and tell us how your first true adventure went. Chapter 355, Telling Grandparents About the Adventure Plus, Turn Off Reset. Orion chuckled softly, warmth spreading through his chest at Eldric's eager and genuine curiosity. He released a comfortable sigh, feeling the subtle warmth from the crackling fireplace nearby slowly drive away the lingering fatigue from his journey. Well, if you're both so eager, then I suppose it's only fair to share the story, Orion said, a smile forming on his lips. He gestured toward the comfortable chairs gathered around the hearth. But let's sit first, this may take a while. Eldric nodded approvingly, eyes twinkling with anticipation as he settled himself comfortably into a large chair. Celine gracefully took a seat beside him, her gentle eyes never leaving Orion as she patiently awaited him to start. Orion eased into a chair opposite them, exhaling softly, feeling quite comfortable talking with his grandparents after so long. As the firelight danced warmly across their faces, Orion began his recounting. The interesting part started after we were separated due to the collapse of the spatial portal. I found myself back in the very same small world we had entered. However, the circumstances were dire, to say the least. I quickly concealed myself using a treasure to escape detection by Valerian, the vampire leader that was the cause of everything there. Celine's eyes narrowed slightly, her expression turning thoughtful. A vampire, huh? Those beings are rare in our world. We mostly deal with one of the 72 demon kings here. But if someone can make their clone and send it to a lower world, he might be stronger than what we can imagine. Even surviving against someone like that would be a challenge. Orion nodded seriously. Indeed, it was no simple task. Valerian's clone had power unlike anything I had seen before for that level. The strength and brutality he displayed were terrifying, yet equally eye-opening. I quickly realized how much more I still have to learn about combat and my own limits, and the world. Eldric leaned forward slightly, his expression solemn yet intrigued. How did you manage against him, Orion? Even for you, this must have been incredibly challenging. Orion met Eldric's gaze steadily, his voice calm yet reflecting the gravity of his experience. Truthfully, I only survived thanks to the right preparations and a measure of fortune. He weakened gradually over the course of our fight, and I capitalized on every opportunity. Eventually, I managed to outlast and defeat him, but even then, it was a close call. Eldric laughed deeply, admiration clear in his voice. Outlasting the clone of a higher being, truly impressive, lad. You've exceeded even my expectations. The clone must have depleted its energy over time. Celine smiled proudly, gently shaking her head in amazement. Yet again, you show us how extraordinary you truly are. But it didn't lose any strength. Master defeated that bastard at his full strength. Shoo, surviving against such a being is already shocking enough. And I think he became weaker due to the Monkey King's strike when he struck him down from the staff. Orion inwardly heaved a sigh as he continued with a contemplative tone. But the most important part of this adventure was not the victory against Valerian, nor even the battle itself. Rather, it was what I gained afterward. Both Eldric and Celine leaned forward slightly, visibly intrigued. Celine's gentle voice prompted softly, "What do you mean, Orion? What else could you have found in such a dangerous place?" Orion's eyes twinkled softly as a mysterious smile curved his lips. I stumbled upon an inheritance, a true legacy left behind by a being whose power and prestige can only be described as godlike. It was not something I had anticipated finding, yet it came at exactly the right time. Eldric's eyes widened considerably, astonishment coloring his face as he stared in disbelief. A godlike inheritance? In a small world? Truly? Celine seemed equally taken aback, though her surprise was quickly replaced by curiosity and wonder. And you accepted this inheritance? Orion nodded solemnly, his gaze steady and confident. Yes, I accepted it. This legacy. I couldn't have skipped on it after all that I went through to get it. Its trials and the responsibilities it comes with are great, or so he said, but I believe this inheritance will help me become stronger. A thoughtful silence filled the hall as Eldrick and Celine processed Orion's revelation. After a moment, Eldrick chuckled warmly, shaking his head in amazement. You really have some insane luck, stumbling upon the inheritance of a godlike being in a small world just like that. Celine softly smiled, pride evident in her gentle eyes. Indeed, it seems fate truly favors you. But more importantly, it speaks volumes about your character, that such a being would deem you worthy. Orion leaned back slightly, as he softly laughed and relaxed deeper into the chair. I'm honored by your faith in me. Still, this legacy is not simply a gift, it's a responsibility, and a heavy one at that. Eldrick nodded approvingly, his expression thoughtful and proud. You're right. Great power always comes with immense responsibility. And I've watched you for long enough to know that you are already prepared for this. Celine squeezed Eldrick's hand gently, her eyes filled with warmth as she gazed affectionately at Orion. And remember, you're never alone in bearing that responsibility. We'll always stand beside you, no matter how challenging your path may become. If you ever feel tired, just come to us. Orion felt a warmth in his chest. Thank you, truly, he murmured softly. I'll make sure to take you up on that offer later. After chatting for a bit longer, the warm crackle of the fireplace created a peaceful, cozy ambience in the hall. Eldrick, noticing Orion beginning to sink deeper into the comfort of his chair, let out a deep chuckle. He leaned forward slightly, a playful grin spreading across his strong, weathered features. All right, lad, you've spent more than enough time entertaining these old bones tonight, Eldrick teased. The three of them have missed you dearly, you know. They've been restless ever since you left. Orion raised an eyebrow, immediately understanding exactly who Eldrick was referring to. A subtle smile curved his lips, an expression of fondness appearing in his eyes. Ah, those three, he said knowingly, amusement coloring his tone. Well, that was quite expected. Haha. Celine chuckled softly, nodding gently as she exchanged a tender glance with Eldrick. Indeed, she said softly. I've sent them to tidy up your room, but they don't yet know you've returned. It should be quite a pleasant surprise for them. Orion laughed lightly, the sound ringing gently through the hall. Then I suppose I should thank you for arranging this unexpected reunion, he said with a playful smile toward Celine as he stood up from his chair. Celine waved him off warmly, her gentle eyes sparkling with motherly affection. Go on, dear. They've waited long enough. Eldrick added jovially, yes, hurry along now. Don't keep them waiting any longer than necessary. You don't want them worrying more than they already have. Especially when they heard you got stuck inside the small world. Orion nodded respectfully to both Eldrick and Celine. All right, then. I'll go and see them now, he said softly, turning to exit the hall. As Orion departed, Celine gently leaned her head against Eldrick's shoulder, a smile of pure contentment on her lips. Eldrick rested a comforting hand on her trembling hand, his eyes filled with pride and affection as they watched Orion leave. He really scared us this time, he softly said. Celine nodded her head. Yes, it was so similar to what had happened with Lucian. Eldrick went silent as he said after a moment of pause, we shouldn't talk about this in front of him. Lest he hesitate from such adventures due to us in the future. Celine lightly nodded her head and closed her eyes to rest. The day had been one of the longest in her life. Eldrick turned to look out of the window as his thoughts churned regarding what would have happened if Orion hadn't returned. The scene shifted as Orion approached his room, the familiar hallway quiet and bathed in soft lamplight. The wooden floors beneath his feet felt comforting and familiar, the scent of polished wood and faint incense relaxing his mind further. Arriving outside his room, he paused briefly, a smile of anticipation forming on his face. Gently, Orion placed a hand on the polished wooden door and slowly pushed it open. The door swung silently, revealing the softly illuminated interior of his spacious room. Inside, Rena and Fiora stood busily cleaning. Rena was carefully dusting the shelves, her face focused as her silky hair swayed with each movement. Fiora, on the other hand, was arranging Orion's bed meticulously, her blonde hair shimmering softly beneath the lamplight as she hummed softly to herself. Both were utterly absorbed in their tasks, completely unaware of Orion's silent entrance. His heart warmed at the sight, and a genuine, affectionate smile slowly blossomed across his face. He quietly stepped into the room, clearing his throat softly. At the gentle sound, both girls turned instantly, eyes widening in shock, surprise, and relief upon seeing Orion. Rina's eyes flashed immediately, a mixture of joy and relief visibly flooding her face. "Young Master Orion!" Rina exclaimed softly, her voice trembling slightly from overwhelming emotion. She quickly placed down the feather duster and took an eager step forward, hesitating briefly in her excitement, unsure if she should rush forward or maintain her composure. Fiora's eyes brightened visibly as a radiant smile quickly illuminated her face, relief evident in her warm gaze. "Why, young master? You're finally back," she exclaimed joyously, finishing tidying up his bed and rushing toward him without hesitation. Orion chuckled softly, opening his arms warmly. "It's good to see both of you again," he said, his voice gentle and filled with affection. "Sorry I kept you both waiting." Rina immediately embraced him, her figure pressing against his chest as she sighed contentedly. "You really took your sweet time, huh?" she softly said, though her tone carried nothing but pure relief. Fiora joined a second later, her softer embrace no less heartfelt. She held onto his sleeve gently, her eyes shimmering softly as she looked up at him. "We're so glad you're safe, young master. We were truly worried." Orion chuckled softly, lightly patting both of their backs reassuringly. "What is even there to worry about? It was just a little adventure. And everything is all right now." Rina stepped back slightly, playfully punching his chest with a mock-serious look. "Your first adventure? How can we not be worried?" Orion shook his head. "It hasn't even been 1 week. What were you worried for?" Rina puffed her cheeks slightly, a charming pout forming on her usually gentle face as she crossed her arms. "Not even 1 week? Young master, do you have any idea how slow the days felt for us? It was absolutely nerve-wracking." Fiora nodded enthusiastically, placing a delicate hand on her chest as if still feeling the lingering anxiety. Exactly. Each day felt like it dragged on forever. Lord Eldrick and Lady Selene assured us you would be all right, but how could we not worry? Orion looked at Fiora with slight surprise at how expressive she had become in just a couple days before he chuckled softly at their worry. He gently guided them toward the comfortable sofas arranged neatly near a large window overlooking the peaceful gardens. Moonlight bathed the scenery in a silvery glow, creating an atmosphere of serenity. All right, Orion conceded gently, taking a seat between the two of them. "I apologize for causing you so much worry. Truly, though, I'm completely fine." Rina gracefully settled down beside Orion, brushing a stray lock of silky hair behind her ear. Her voice softened, the slight reprimand in her tone turning to tenderness. "We're just glad you're safe and sound, young master. But you can't blame us for worrying, you know. You're precious to us." Fiora quickly agreed, her red eyes sparkling with sincerity. "She's right, young master. You're irreplaceable. Of course we'd worry." Orion nearly burst out laughing at their honesty. He gently squeezed both their hands in reassurance. "Now you guys need to learn to trust me. These adventures will get frequent in the future," he said softly, his voice brimming with playfulness. The two girls looked at each other as Rina hesitated slightly and asked, "Then, can you take us with you on those adventures?" He looked at her with a smile and said, "Only if you have equal level of strength as the rest of my club members." The expressions of the two of them visibly relaxed, their faces gradually shifting from worry and hesitation to curiosity as they accepted his words and decided to train harder. Rina leaned in slightly, her eyes gleaming with excitement. "So? What exactly happened during your adventure? You must have faced incredible dangers." Fiora's expression turned equally inquisitive, anticipation evident in her voice. "Yes, please tell us." Lady Celine only mentioned that you went inside a small world, but she didn't tell us any details. We've been dying of curiosity. Orion chuckled, leaning back comfortably as he prepared to recount his adventure once more. Well, let me start from the beginning. He started and told them the things that happened with the group from the time they entered the portal. Then he reached the intense part, his eyes glinting with memories. And after the portal collapsed, I found myself back in that small world. The situation was extremely dire. The vampire leader, Valerian, was causing chaos, and the whole world was at the brink of collapse. Both girls gasped softly, eyes widening as they imagined the severity of Orion's predicament. Fiora's hand tightened around his arm, eyes wide. Why you faced that powerful being directly, young master? Orion nodded slowly, his tone turning serious yet calm. I had no choice. Thankfully, I'd hidden myself away long enough to improve my cultivation. Once ready, I confronted Valerian directly. He was powerful, far stronger than anyone I'd faced before. But after a long struggle, I finally managed to defeat him. Rena's delicate brows furrowed with awe and admiration, her soft voice filled with wonder. Young master, you truly are incredible. To fight such a terrifying enemy and come out victorious. Fiora shook her head in amazement, her voice gentle and reverent. It's almost unbelievable. Orion chuckled, waving a hand modestly. It wasn't easy by any means. I learned a lot from that battle, especially about my own limits and what I must improve. Fiora tilted her head slightly, curiosity gleaming brightly in her gaze. What happened afterward? Surely, defeating Valerian wasn't the end?